Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Jack Santos, the board chair for the Newburyport Maritime Society, which is the official name of the group that operates the Custom House Maritime Museum. And I really appreciate everyone coming and showing their interest for our 2023 annual members meeting of the Maritime Society. It's going to be, we purposely tried to keep the meeting short, quick, to the point. We're basically going to get a couple of business items out of the way, the election of new officers, a discussion or presentation of our strategic plan, which you've got on your seat, the 2-page summary of the plan, and then at the end we'll have a plaque presentation for some of our retiring directors. So it will be quick. We'll get you out of here. 45 minutes, certainly no longer than an hour, but I do appreciate your coming. For questions, there will be appropriate points within the evening to ask questions. The presenters will mention that at the time. Will be basically around finance, as well as around the strategic plan, and of course we'll leave some time at the end for any Q&A and input that you may have as members. So let me just say a couple of things before I introduce our next speaker. There's the welcome, and here's the agenda, which we'll be going over. Chris presenting the year from the executive director's point of view, a financial report, the election of directors, our strategic plan, and then a few words on Maritime Days, and then a recognition of service. I do want to say, since we are a history museum and we love our history, there's a few things I did want to make a comment on. The Newburyport Maritime Society was founded in April 1968 through the efforts of the first directors of the society, which included, some of you may know these people, George Duffy, Edward Peel, Jerry Molina, George Cashman, Bernard Jaguar, Michael O'Brien, Richard Hurley, William Welsh, Chester Young, and Albert Collier. Through their efforts and many others that followed, the museum was opened in this restored Custom House building in 1975. So it's only fitting that we remember these early leaders of the society as we approach the 50th anniversary of the establishment of this museum. Going further back in history, the Custom House Maritime Museum is physically located on Nadakina, which is traditional ancestral homeland of the Pawtucket Pennacook peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways that the Alanobac people who have stewarded Nadakina throughout the generations. I hope that these examples of our history are an inspiration for how we as members of the Newburyport Maritime Society act as stewards for this building, for this land, for the maritime history of the Lower Merrimack Valley, and for the museum. So that's as words of introduction. I've already mentioned we'll take questions at the strategic points in the evening, and we'll begin our evening with remarks by our executive director, Chris Silva, who joined us in 2022 and recently reached the 8-month mark as executive director. And I had a whole slew about his broken ankle of jokes that I thought would be really funny, but we'll forego those and do those later. Chris?
Thank you. Jack told me to keep this quick, so I'm just going to say my name and leave. But and I'm doing my best salty seaman impersonation here. It's been a very active year. It's been a great experience the last 8 months. And some of the things I'd like to touch on, I started the whole thing off with our acquisition of the Tracy letter, and that was fantastic. Oh,
I can click it for you.
There we go. There's the Tracy letter. So what a great opportunity we had obtaining this letter, and it's a great addition to our collection. And through generous support, we were able to preserve and conserve that letter, which we now have in our possession, and in future dates we'll find an appropriate way to display it here within the museum. Right after that, we got involved with the Rybecki Award, and very well attended. It was a great event. It was probably one of the hottest days here during the summer. It was probably 94 degrees. We still had a crowd of over 50 to 80 people show up for the award, and we had a great flyover by the Coast Guard. We also got right into the installation of the new red doors that we have. That was graciously funded by the CPC grant through the city of Newburyport. And we're going to be starting some new projects. The back doors will be happening shortly. We've had a busy season with weddings, music events, poet events, readings, and our First Fridays. It's been a fantastic experience for me. We accepted a new collections policy that we are now utilizing. It's wonderful to have that. It gives us some guidelines to achieve our goals in preserving our collections and obtaining new collections, or having other collections leave the building. Our First Fridays were well attended. We had a highlight. We had Commander of the USS Constitution, Billy Farrell, come and speak. It was a great night. It was a great opportunity for me to speak to her off mic, but it was just a fantastic opportunity for this institution. We established a curatorial and collections program here that we received a grant for, and that is going to fold into our objectives within our strategic plan. And it's something that I'm glad we're doing. We have some incredible collections here that really should be a priority. From that, we hired a development officer. Kathleen Britton joined us in December, and it's changed a lot of the dynamics here within the building and what our goals are. And we also applied for
Maybe we could have
Kathleen.
Is Kathleen here?
Oh, yeah. And then to round out the year, we applied for another CPC grant with the city of Newburyport that's going to help us preserve the building envelope, windows, mortar. Our front portico is going to be rebuilt, and that is really a priority, is preserving this great gift we got from Newburyport. So that is the year for me so far for the 8 months, and we'll hopefully have more to add next year. Thank you so much.
And next up is a financial report by Doug Muir, our treasurer. Doug, do you want to click it yourself, or I can click it for you?
Just, why don't you do it?
Okay, great.
I do that really well. You do that well, you won't have much clicking. Thank you. I agreed to step in as treasurer for a year, which is my last year here on the board. And we've had a good year financially. Let's see, we have the blue is 2022 compared with the green, 2021. And as you can see, the revenue is up. Unfortunately, the expense is up as well, but the net income is up. In addition, we've been able to set aside some additional funds for our reserve, which consists of two things, really. One is a Merrill Lynch two-part endowment, part of which is dedicated to the building and part is not, and then cash reserves on our own balance sheet. So as you can see, we've added considerable, I think, let's see, a total of $854 and change for 2022, if you can add that up, which is about it's about 55,000 more than 2021. So we're pleased with that. And I'm not going to comment on the budget. We do have a 2023 budget that we've approved at the board level. And 2023 is going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, because we need to keep the revenue up, and we don't have control over a lot of the expenses, particularly things like utilities and payroll and whatnot, that they just keep moving. So the challenge for us in 2023 is to keep the revenue moving up to take care of expenses and give us a comfortable balance. So there'll be an opportunity for questions later, but if somebody has something that they're burning to ask, you can do it now. If he gets enough votes after this, our next treasurer, I believe, will be Charlie Tontar. And many of you probably know Charlie from Newburyport days and City Council days. So that's my report. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Swindlehurst.
You know how to use this.
Oh, okay. Member of the board and chair of the nominating committee, thank you for being here. There's a lot of places you could be this afternoon or this evening, and I'm glad you took an hour to be with us here. It means a lot to us to have you come. So on behalf of the 2023 nominating committee, that's including Susan Bernhardt, Susan Finneran, Jack Santos, and Charlie Tontar, and myself as the chair, I'm happy to present this report. I thank them for their service. We've worked, unlike most nominating committees that many nonprofits you're familiar with, we work all year long. We drive toward this annual meeting and tonight to finish our work in great fashion, which is where we are. The committee developed a slate of new directors, which was reviewed by the board of directors. Following the review of the slate, which included the short bios that you have on your chairs this evening, we mailed that to the membership as is required in the bylaws. The slate includes Bob Cronin, who's not able to be with us tonight, he's traveling. John Burke, would you stand please, John? And Ted Olson, please also stand. Don't clap yet, it's not over. Because I will now entertain a motion from the floor to approve the slate as distributed.
So
Thank you, and do I have a second?
second.
Could everyone who votes in the affirmative say aye?
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Now please join me in congratulating John and staff. Please, when the meeting is over and we have a little bit of a schmooze, please take the opportunity, if you haven't, to introduce yourself to John and to Ted and offer your congratulations to them. Thank you very much.
Right click. Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I thank you all for coming. It's also a real honor and a privilege, to be a part of the museum. I think it's a wonderful institution, and I really enjoy being part of it. Full disclosure, I love strategic planning. Some of you think it's like pulling a tooth. It's not, or you may think. But let me tell you why I like it. First of all, it brings people together. It challenges us to think hard about what is most important. It allows us to think creatively about what might be possible. It reminds us of our responsibility to the museum as an institution, to our constituents, and to those who have gone before us. It asks us, day in and day out, to do our very best to make our museum stronger, more welcoming, and more engaging. That's just part of why I love it. The beginning, and I'll be brief, I'll try to be brief, or I promise Jackie could hook me off. Okay, in spring 2021, the board of directors voted to develop a new strategic plan. A planning committee was formed, and we met weekly, gathering data and discussing our strengths and weaknesses. We looked back at earlier strategic plans from within the museum and we surveyed other museums and nonprofit organizations to discover best practices. 5 months later, after numerous meetings and much discussion, the board approved the plan. By then it was May 2022. So now oh, there we go. Okay, thank you, Jack. Well, I'm gonna stay here for a bit, but don't change it. Okay, so I'm gonna ask, rhetorically, so why do we do a strategic plan? The short answer is we do it to make our organization, our museum, better in so many different ways. But I think what really matters is how we do it. There's the why, excuse me, but then there's the how. And I think it's important to let folks know that we do it by setting achievable goals and priorities, and by determining resources, and that's the kicker, needed to implement and achieve results, and to advance the museum's mission and vision, not just in the immediate term, but in the very long term. And that's the other kicker too, sustainability. So we planned strategically, we thought methodically, and with intention, with an eye towards sustainability, which I just mentioned. Okay, the three masts of our strategic plan, and I happen to think this is the most beautiful clipper ship I've ever seen, probably because it's blue. But in our work together, we whittle things down to three important areas of the museum. And the first one is stewardship, the second one is education, and the third is community. And again, we did that by lots of surveying and gathering data, and then landing on these three things. In the area of stewardship, we have three sub-areas, and these are the areas where we thought that stewardship is particularly important, i.e. that without these areas and without strong performance in these areas, we might not have a museum. So under stewardship, and I'll begin this, we have a stewardship of the building, and then I'll talk about a stewardship of our finances, and then our stewardship of our collections. And some of the things Chris already mentioned, I'll just say Chris already mentioned, and we'll move on. Okay, so going through just a few of the goals and objectives for each of these areas, but one of the most important was the building. And basically we were looking at where we are at this time in history. And so we were very specific about wanting to make sure that our building was that we could minimize environmental impacts, including sea level rise and climate change. And that was probably the most important thing. But some of the examples of what we've accomplished in the area of the buildings, most of them Chris already mentioned, so I won't go over those, but I think that we've done some really good work in terms of shoring up our building and making it strong for the future. And I'm particularly excited about the two back doors, because once those are installed, and there'll be a little sign, people that walk across the harbor walk will know that this large building has an amazing museum in it. Okay, next one. Okay, finance in the area, again, Chris mentioned this. The idea was to increase our staffing budget and hire a director of development. Thank goodness we were able to get Kathleen to join our group, and I think it's going to be such a great improvement. So we can go on with that. And under the collections mass, and this is another really important area, because we have an attic that's filled with wonderful relics. And we've had a bit of a storage problem here for I think it's been for quite a while, because we have a lot of wonderful artifacts. What we ventured into was first to update our collections policy, which again was mentioned, but also really to clean it and rehouse and recatalog what we currently have in storage. And to that end, we hired a dedicated staff member for the collections area who's also working with a lot of folks who are volunteering to help in that area. And that's a real big addition and a real big plus. Okay, so our second area is the education mast. And what we did here is we said, we know we've had a great connection with the Greater Newburyport schools, but we've kind of lost that most recently. I don't know if we lost it, during the pandemic or what the history was, but people come and go. And so we decided that we really wanted to get connected to the community, and particularly the school system, in both the Newburyport area and the Greater Newburyport area, to bring folks in from around. And so we kind of went full out and said, well, we're just going to jump in and do this. And so we have several items here. When we talk about collaboration, and you folks all know this, it's all about relationships, right? And so it takes time to build those connections and those relationships. So what we've actually been doing is getting out into the community, meeting with the school system, meeting with educators, meeting with what's the other one? I said that, well, we've met with the leaders at both the middle school and the high school as well. Another objective was to engage the educational communities in the legendary Newburyporters exhibit, and we've been working towards that for quite a while. And in order to be able to get the students to come to us, we've had to kind of travel this road of, we probably could have known it a little bit sooner, but we didn't. It's traveling this road of matching with their, what they call, what are the
Frameworks.
Well, not the frameworks, but the actual standards. They're called standards, right? The standards that the students in the schools are working on. And so the teachers don't have enough time to just plan a field trip and come to the museum. But what we needed to do was go the extra mile and say, no, we're going to meet with you and find out which area you're going to be studying in the near future, and how we can match that with our museum. And so, Jen, you could speak to this better than I, but we've finally kind of landed a plan where next fall we'll be entertaining 4th and 5th graders, because it's going to be matching with their standards, and that's what's going to allow them to come to us. So a lot of that relationship building, and I'm really kind of, am I over time yet? Not yet, okay. And one of the other things we did was we said, we got to get on the list of at the high school for programs for internships. I mean, that's a big thing. A lot of schools, a lot of colleges are doing it, have been for many years, internships, but you have to get connected with them. You got to get on their list so that when students go into the office area or wherever they go, they can look and see that the museum is a place where we can volunteer. And then I think we're going to have to go out to them and say, hey, it would be great if you can target a couple of students that you think would really want to come and be with us. Okay. One more. Okay, the community mass, another big area. We talked a lot about raising our visibility in the town and in the Greater Newburyport area. We talked a lot about strengthening our relationships within Newburyport. One of the greatest things, and I'll just skip most of this, but one of the greatest things that happened recently was our planned cultivation event, and to say thank you to our major donors. And it's one of those things, it's labor intensive and it takes a long time to plan, but boy, was it a great event. Something, people will be talking about for a long time. And it's all about, again, relationships, people. And in that way, we kind of, set the standard a little bit higher. Am I done? I'm done. Thanks so much for listening.
questions, about the strategy or what you've seen on the leaflet in front of you? I think I gotta give Dina a ton of credit. She kind of led this effort. We have, of course, your requisite outside consultant also helping us through this. And, but I think it really came together rather nicely. I like the fact that it's pretty simple. Stewardship of the building, collection, and finances, our education efforts, which are really taking off, and then really being involved in the community. Because I think when it comes to Newburyport, there's only 3 things going on here that attracts outsiders. Restaurants, right? And there's a firehouse, and then there's a museum. So it's really important that we keep the museum that third leg of that stool for tourism and money flowing in. Any questions? Good job. Wow. Awesome. So let me tell you about Maritime Days. Everybody saw the article in the paper. 2023, we have our 2023 Maritime Days. It's back. And I'm going to give you just kind of a quick, brief overview of what we have planned for Maritime Days. The ship will be arriving on June 29th at high tide. Oh, by the way, the chair of Maritime Days this year, and the person, if something goes right, he's the guy to congratulate. If something goes wrong, he's the guy to blame. Bob Cronin is our chair of Maritime Days, and now he's part of the board, so he's got no excuse. But June 29th is the ship arrives on high tide. We've left a little slack in case something should go wrong. Like, for instance, they don't dredge the channel. We hope to get that dredge in within the next few days to make sure that we've got plenty of room. But even if they don't dredge it, we're told by the harbor master that shouldn't be a problem. We should be able to still get them over the bar and through the channel. On June 30th, which is a Friday, we've set that aside for VIP tours and for tours with educators, so that we can amp up our education strategy and get the educators really involved. By the way, the ship this year is the Now Trinidad, and the Now Trinidad was the ship that the Magellan took around the world. So exhibits on the ship will reflect that Magellan voyage, which I was just briefed tonight, that yeah, it's a very interesting story, so I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot about that. On the evening of June 30th, that Friday, is our preview welcome aboard party. You'll be hearing a lot more about that. And we'll have music, we'll have food, we'll have exclusive access to the ship. You won't have to deal with the crowds that will be coming during the day. And drink and just partying all night long on the 30th. Then July 1st to the 9th, that is July 4th week, the Now Trinidad will be open to tours. We're still working out whether there will be some public tours on that Friday. We're trying to stay to the spirit of the welcome aboard party being the initial access to the ship, but we may want to work out some bugs in terms of our ticketing procedures and things like that. And that'll happen on Friday, but the public tours will definitely be taking place on July 1st through the 9th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 3 mornings have been set aside for children and school-aged children, summer camps to come on board, so between 8 to 10 in the morning. And there are 3 evenings that are set aside for businesses or organizations that want to use the ship for their own parties or events. I think we've already have 1 night taken, and they're going fast. So if you have a business or a group or a big family that you want to just have the ship to yourself, see Kathleen or see Bob Cronin when he's back, and we can work out an arrangement. We're also working on sponsorships. Kathleen, is that right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, a sponsorship for the whole week, as well as a sponsorship for the welcome aboard party. So we're looking for help and
sponsorships for the education programs as well.
Okay, excellent. So see Kathleen if there's even the slightest bit of interest. I just want to remind all our members, this is a fundraiser. So the intent is to raise money for the museum and keep the museum going. And then July 10th, which I think is a Monday, if I'm not mistaken, the ship leaves on high tide. So that's pretty much the schedule, simpler than maybe we've had in prior years. It may get expanded. There's some talk about a welcoming boat regatta out to the mouth of the river to bring the ship in. All that's still being worked on and planned. And you can contact Kathleen or Bob over the next month or two as we develop those plans. Any questions about Newburyport Maritime Days? I would be remiss to not mention a couple of other events that we're doing this summer. The legendary Newburyport exhibit is scheduled at this stage to wrap up at the end of the year. And we're working diligently on a new exhibit that will start in, 2024. So, but in the meantime, Jeffrey Briggs has kindly agreed to create 2 new maquettes or sculptures. I like to call them sculptures. He calls them maquettes. But, and those will be unveiled, the first one at our April 1st Friday. Is that right? Did I get that?
April 7th.
April 7th. So you can come the first Friday and see that one. And I think that is Captain William Nichols, if I be premature in announcing that. And Nichols' descendant will be here to talk about Captain Nichols at that first Friday event. And then we'll have another maquette unveiled during the summer, maybe during Yankee Homecoming. I don't know all the details about how we've arranged that yet. But so we'll have 2 new statues unveiled this year. The other thing that you should know about, I think, am I missing anything that members should know about coming up? No, I think I hit the highlights of events that I know I'm missing something, but it'll come to me. And finally, for our last item on the agenda before we go into any final Q&A, a recognition of service. This is the part of the agenda, and Jennifer, come on up here to help do this. But this is the part of the agenda that all of you might be saying, how can I get involved? Or what's it like to be on the board? Or what's in it for me? This is a big part of what's in it for you. So,
So, as we welcome new board members on board, that means regretfully we have to say goodbye to some others. So, Doug Muir, this is his last year. He's been a steady keel for the museum for the past 6 years. He's performed and led us as its chair, treasurer, and legal advisor. We would certainly not be where we are today without his leadership, accounting abilities, and always excellent advice. Doug, we know you're not only leaving the museum, but also the state. We wish you and Cynthia happiness in your new home and hope you will stay involved in this fine museum, which you have been such an instrumental part of making us who we are today. So with this small gift, we are going to thank you for your contribution.
need help with that?
I think I got it. So, but maybe when, so this is, Jack, why don't you tell us where we got this?
Oh, yeah, it's an Updike slate that is made from the roof tile on the building. You may know that we replaced all the slate tiles over the last few years, and as you can tell from our ceiling, it's pretty freeze. But and this is an old roof tile from the building that we like to present to our outdoor.
And Michael Updike is the artist who carved this. So the back says, Doug Muir, with gratitude for your many years of generous service and dedication for preserving the maritime legacy of the city of Newburyport. From the directors, staff, and volunteers at the Custom House Maritime Museum.
Very cool.
Solid gold around the Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our other member, Susan Bernhardt, is not here tonight. She's just come back from Europe, and unfortunately she was exposed to COVID, so she's declined to come, which was probably good. So, but I'm going to read what I've written for her anyway. Susan Birdhart has been a steady force these past 6 years while on the board. She came to the museum filled with energy and fabulous zeal to make the museum a better place when she left than when she arrived. In this, I can say that she has succeeded. I've only had the pleasure of knowing her for the last 3 years, but in those 3 years, she's been executive board chair and has held us all on a very steady course to success. She managed us through the very uncertain times of COVID with leadership, grace, and determination. Her ceaseless efforts at fundraising and her wonderful personality, which she wields to connect with people, will continue to pay dividends far into our future. Susan brought a can-do attitude to the museum and the board, which I hope will continue even with the loss of her direct presence at our meetings. We all thank Susan for already helping to make us the destination within the destination. And we also have a plaque for Susan. But since she's not here, maybe I'll just take it.
Yeah, wait your turn. So, with that, I think we've hit all the items on the agenda, and I just want to make sure to see if there are any final questions or thoughts or comments. What can we do better? What are we not doing so well? No, keep those things. No. But questions?
What type of experiences would the interns have that would you have on the team?
What kinds of experiences will we have for interns when they join the team? I don't know. Who wants to take that on the board? Go ahead, Lita.
I understand that. I think there could be, multitudes of things. In the past, we've had, I've only been here a year and a half, but in the past, we've had folks work in the collections area. That I know for sure.
They're always involved in the events.
Yeah, they're always involved in the events, and so if they're interested in anything like the hospitality area. The other thing that always, what is the other one that I was thinking about, the hospitality area?
And if they choose to be, they can be trained to be docents.
Yep, they can be trained to be docents. It's kind of, there's all kinds of things they do. I think it's a matter of, what we need to do, I think, is we are, as I said, probably going to go to the high school and talk to and then again reach out. The colleges are a little harder because they have their own set ways of letting inch terms go different places, but we do have the high school right here. But we need to just whatever, like in that particular year or coming years, etc. So
I think, Nita, in addition to whatever experience they may have had, it's enthusiasm that really counts.
Oh, yeah,
And we've had, for example, people in museum studies programs
Yep.
that have come, older people,
Yep.
college people, basically,
Yep.
wanting a career in a museum.
Yep.
And they may or may not ever do that,
But it puts it in their mind.
So depending on age level,
Yep.
but I think the key to the whole thing is enthusiasm.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
Because, as a high school student, you never know what you're going to end up wanting to do with your life.
Yeah.
You really don't, and
Yeah.
you think you do. So, but if you're enthusiastic about taking things on and trying new things.
Absolutely.
And it's fair to point out Sammy Pickering, who is now in our collections office, she's kind of going through our goal of cataloging our collection.
Yeah.
Started as an intern.
Yep.
And it got her interested in that kind of history career. She's gone to school, now she's back and is working for us full time.
Another thing is that I was trying to think of, but merchandising, helping out with the gift shop. And another thing that way back in my mind, I'm thinking, the idea of getting people in and giving them exposure to different kinds of things, just could become a kind of a leadership program, like a youth leadership program, if we wanted to go that far and kind of package the experience. But, so I think everybody's had great suggestions.
Nina mentioned that COVID really did a job, not only for us, but education in general, and that connection we have with the schools just got disrupted, and we're just still trying to get our stride back on that.
Well, thank you for the question.
Camille, did you have a question?
I was going to ask about if they can be involved with the collections.
Yeah.
So
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And any other questions, comments, thoughts? Fantastic. We tried to keep this to the point, quick. Thank you for coming this evening. I hope you found the information and report on the society helpful. This concludes our annual meeting of the Newburyport Maritime Society. Do I have a motion from the floor to adjourn the annual members meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Great, and I'd like to remind board members to reconvene about 15 minutes down in the conference room so we can get do a short meeting to take care of some administrative items for our bylaws. For everyone else, I wish you an enjoyable evening, a safe travel home, whether you walk, drive, or otherwise. Have a good evening, everybody.